Hello and welcome to another episode of Moose's Gear Goo Review. I'm Moose, and today we're going to be doing a comparison or a versus. We have a versus of the Civivi Odium versus the Ferrum Forge Mini Archbishop. Boom. So now, obviously, I'm just got in the Odium. This isn't a review. It's more or less just kind of a cosmetic comparison, just on the physical features that I am able to distinguish the difference between, how they compare a little bit, and you know what which one might be better. Now, I'm not saying anyone is better than the other. These do have some differences that might make you want to choose one over the other. But for the most part, as you can see, they're basically the same knife. So, that being said, the first one to come out was the Mini Archbishop by Ferrum Forge. This is a relatively new knife to me. I mean, I've had it longer than this one, obviously, and I love it. I love this knife, and I've done a review, and I'll actually link the review in the upper right-hand corner there if you click on that eye. But, yeah, and I saw this knife from Backpack B, his channel, so I'll leave a link in the description below to his channel, so check him out. He does some amazing stuff. And then I saw on Blade HQ that they had pre-orders for this knife, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's the same knife. But then I saw that Civivi was doing it in the comments, or maybe it was an Instagram post, that is actually based off the Ferrum Forge Mini Archbishop. So it's cool that they're collabing in that way and using that. And so the first thing we'll compare is the price. Now, at the time of this video on Blade HQ, the Mini Archbishop was $75, and the Odium, I believe, was like $52. So I've got about a $25, $23 price difference. So right there, you can pick if you're going for cheaper. Yeah, the Odium is the cheaper option. So yeah, that's the price. Now, going over the overall physical features, blade weight, length, and stuff. I believe the actual Mini Archbishop is actually slightly longer just by a hair, and it does have a larger, more cutting edge, which is hard to see, but in the measurements, at least online, they're literally like a tenth apart, Yeah, the cutting edge on the Odium is 2.25 inches, and the cutting length of the Archbishop is 2.35. So there's going to be a lot of subtleties in this. You can see that the Mini Archbishop is actually slightly longer on overall length. So there's that. The other thing I noticed is that the jimping on the actual spine of the blade extends out farther on the Mini Archbishop, which I noticed when I went into the finger choil grip, the forward grip. I still had jimping underneath my thumb where my thumb rests, so my grip is locked in really well. Where on the Odium, when I'm in that forward grip, the jimping's barely underneath my thumb, and so where I grip, I wish there was more jimping here. So in that sense, for a more secure grip in the forward position, the win definitely goes to the Mini Archbishop. Other than that, they both flip very nicely. The Archbishop, I believe, is on ball bearing washers, very smooth, drop shutty, and the Odium is on bronze phosphorus washers, which flip very nice. Honestly, it's very smooth and drop shutty enough as well. Then going into the choil, I believe the choil is slightly larger on the Odium. Uh, then moving along, as far as branding goes, there's nothing on that side. And right here on the Odium, very hard to make out, but it says 9CR 18 MOV, so the blade steel. And then on this side, you have the Ferrum Forge logo, and then you have D2 stamped right there. So both very clean looks, especially on the show side. So that's good. As far as the blade finish, we have a stonewash finish over on the Archbishop, which is done really nicely, very smooth. That really reduces the drag. Somehow they kind of polished it or whatever it is. At least I think it's a stonewash. But it makes this thing very slicey and cuts through wood like a dream. And then on this side, it's supposed to be a stonewash, and I'm still... If it is, it's done the same way. It's like a black wash, but a very, very subtle black wash, which also gives it a very smooth, frictionless grip. I still need to test it on some wood, but I'm assuming it'll cut very similarly. Moving into the handles, another noticeable difference is that kind of cutout at the top there. Just makes it seem a little different. Actually helps your finger dip in to deploy the knife, where on the Archbishop, you just kind of have to drop down that rounded part and then lock it in. But both are deployable, but this just adds a little bit different texture, and it's kind of more comfy to rest there if you need to. Also, going into it, we see a huge difference in, well, obviously the logo of the pivot pin is the Civivi C, which is cool and all, but I'm not a huge fan. It doesn't look bad, but it isn't as cool as the triangular pivot pin of the Archbishop. Like, honestly, that just looks cool. It looks premium. This doesn't look bad, but I definitely prefer the Ferrum Forge logo over the Civivi. So now the big thing is the G10 handle scales. They both have G10 handle scales. Fairly clean profile on the G10, where on the, at least on the Odium, where on the Ferrum Forge, you do have the hardware present. They are flattened out and they are polished to match the pivot pin, so that's nice. But just a little bit cleaner look on the Civivi. You still have that shadow boxing of the steel liners underneath. But the big difference is this contoured G10. It's a little bit more polished and smoothed out, where the Archbishop has a little bit more of a fabric texture. This has a much more minute texturing to it, if any. But then you get those nice rounded scales, contoured, and you can definitely see. So the G10 is slightly thicker on the Odium, which also gives the handle a slight more girth, but the look and the feel, I will say the Odium, as far as G10 texturing, feels much more comfortable in hand. The other thing is, you see that there isn't a kind of arched divot in the handle as much on the Odium. It's filled out a little bit, so it actually fills the hand much nicer, where at times I felt the Archbishop was a little bit thin and slim to hold. So and two, my pinky definitely falls off when it's in those choils, where this, I kind of get a little bit of a hook. So the handle's actually bigger on the Odium, but very comfortable. So definitely like the contoured G10, definitely a win for the Odium there. Blade thicknesses are about the same. Oh, another very subtle difference that I noticed between these is we have the back spacer in here. It's kind of ribbed or whatever. They also have a ribbed one on the Odium, but the Odium actually has a raised portion here. So this is flush with the profile, where this, you can see the raised portion. Just an interesting texture roll feel. Not really sure why, but it might add for when you're sliding it out of pocket, just to get your finger gripped on there. But definitely noticeable. There's a little thing I wanted to show you. Both have kind of raised pivot hardware. Odium's a little bit bigger, sticking out more. And then once again, we have a cleaner surface on the reverse side on the Odium, but then we still have that polished hardware there. Now, when it comes to the pocket clips, this is a pretty standard saming pocket clip for a lot of Civivi knives. It works. It's good. And you can see it is deep carry. None of these sit completely deep carry, but both of them have flat hardware. I will say I love the look of the Archbishop's pocket clip. Plus, it sits flush underneath there. I mean, that is clean. That is a clean, very well done pocket clip. Civivi, very well done pocket clip, but it's not completely flush, and because of that, definitely giving the pocket clip win to the Archbishop. But the Civivi is reversible, so for lefties, you're definitely gonna, if that matters, you're definitely gonna want to go with the Odium. If you don't, you want a really clean looking pocket clip that, the fit and finish on this knife looks really nice and everything's flush, then you're gonna want to go with the Archbishop. Let's see. The last thing is the liner locks. Both of them are accessible. The Archbishop is nice and clean. Like I said, flush. There's a lot of the lines and everything with this knife is very clean and flush. But then with the Odium, they add some jimping or knurling there just for traction and grip. And so it's kind of on preference as far as that goes. Now, the other thing is, if you can see inside, the mini Archbishop is not milled out in any way. There's no skeletonization, where you do have skeletonization on the Odium, which will help cut the weight. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, sweet, because Civivi knives are great at doing that. They do that triangular skeletonization. So I thought this would be lighter, but in reality, the Archbishop is like a not 0.1 less or something. It's like off by like 10 marks. So it is slightly lighter, and you can notice it enough, but both are very well balanced, and like I said, essentially they're the same knife. And then the other difference is blade steel. Now, this is 9CR18 MOV, and this is D2. I'm not familiar enough with 9CR18 MOV to really tell. I know D2 is definitely a good edge retaining steel. But to be honest, with the use that I've had with this so far, the 9CR18 MOV is actually holding up pretty well. So I actually am pretty impressed with it. It reminds me of definitely more like a really, really good 14C 28N or whatever, the Sandvik steel, if not better. It's definitely up there. It's getting up there. Probably closer to like VG10. And D2 is good. Especially the way that they refined it now. You don't have to be as careful with rust, but it's still rust. So, but there you have it, guys. Great comparison. Love them both. These things are just awesome. I'm going to be carrying the heck out of both of these. There's certain things that I like on both, but to be honest, when it comes to comfort, fit in hand, and like comfort of use, I'm going to have to go with the Civivi Odium. I use my knives. I'm not a collector. When it comes to overall like looks, I just love that pivot pin look, and I love the pocket clip. I just feel like this is a little bit more sophisticated. If this had contoured scales, the Archbishop would be hands down the best. But because this has the contoured scales and it's way more comfy, I'm gonna end up using this one more comfortably. But that being said, the other thing is for the thumb hole deployment, I found that the Archbishop is slightly easier for me in my larger hands, because it has less handle to get in the way. And I think this, for whatever reason, on this one, it's a little bit more rounded, so it's a little bit harder for me to open with a slow roll. But ultimately, great knives. You can't go wrong with either one. I highly recommend both of them. And like I said, in the end, I would pick the Odium over the Archbishop, purely for comfort of use when it comes to actual looks, and the overall, I just love that pocket clip, so I'd go with this. So there you have it, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. And let me know which one you think you would pick and what you would like. So leave those comments down below, and I'll see you outside. Peace.